Hello, Abigail here with just a little bit of a ramble and chat about Jupiter and Leo. This is going to be a really interesting one. There's a lot of dynamic stuff happening, but to start off with, let's look at the archetypes. We start off with Jupiter, which is about abundance and growth and expanse. It also is about immigrants and travel and higher learning and knowledge. It also covers legality of things and legislation, and what is right and wrong when it comes to a social sense of those things. And so that is going into Leo, which is the sign of the sun, which rules the heart. And this is, this sign is about how we present in the world, the things that drive us, what really speaks to us. Those are things that we find in Leo. What speaks to us exists in Leo. Oftentimes, Leo is like, everyone's like, oh, they just want attention and like blah, blah, blah. And I will say, most Leo placements want some kind of feedback. They don't necessarily have to be on stage, but they want to be known for something. Um, every Leo that takes a back seat still wants to be perceived as good at their job, as someone who is forward thinking and competent and skilled in what they do. They want to be the best at what they do. Um, and if you don't, then that might be something to think about. So we have Jupiter, this expansive luck luck harbinger, going into Leo, and so it is very centered on the self and desires and what we want moving forward and things that make us tick. And then we have this expansion happening and this luck, and it's really important, I think, for you to look at where this is in your chart or to get a reading about this, because that's going to tell you specifically what the themes are going to be. Like if it's in the fifth house, this is a really huge creative boost for you, and also will make you really think through your creativity, because we do have the South Node in there at the same time, which is something we will discuss. Or if it's in the second, then this is about finding and exploring and releasing parts of yourself that you maybe have kept hidden, gifts and talents and skills that maybe you yourself weren't even aware of, or you just repressed from a long time ago. And so each house is going to have a different theme. So we're just going to go over the general quality, but keep that in mind as I'm talking. Go look it up now. Um, there's also another thing is that Jupiter moving out of Cancer, it is the last larger planetary body that is still in a young sign or a feminine sign. I don't want to split this in the binary, but this energy of kind of moistness and fertility and intuition. Not that the air and fire aren't intuitive, but kind of this inner knowing, this flow. This goes in going into Leo. This no one else on the outer planets are in there. We've got Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries, Uranus now in Gemini, and Pluto in Aquarius. So everything is yin energy. Everything is masculine energy. This forward moving, often reckless force of nature. This is dry. This is hot energy. And so there's more of a sense of urgency around this cycle. There's more of a sense of progression. If you have felt a little bit stuck in the past, that kind of nostalgic Cancer energy, this is definitely going to shift that. Forward thinking, forward moving. This whole thing starts on June 29th and will end on July 26th of 2027. I can't remember if I said that before, but it's about, with the retrograde and stuff, it's about 13-ish months. It's about 12 or 13 months is how long a Jupiter cycle is. And so this is a whole new phase of 12 months. It also is going to be happening during the eclipses in Aquarius and Leo. It is going to bring in all of the oppositions and trines and sextiles between the great outer planets. It's a really bombastic moment that I think offers a unique opportunity for us to transform and to shift and to change and to become more aligned and attuned with who we are and what we want. The kind of downfalls and the trip ups of this is that you can become overconfident. Now, if you have a lack of self confidence, you don't need to worry about this necessarily. But if you know someone who's kind of a blowhard or overconfident or kind of constantly pushing the envelope without really thinking things through, this could be a toppling. Also important to remember that with the eclipses in Leo and Aquarius, this is very much about rulers and leaders. And Jupiter in Leo is going to heighten this. So we're going to see the rise and fall of a lot of rulers and leaders during this time. And with the eclipses, we're going to see some deaths as well. So just painting a picture. So with this energy, with all of this going on, we have some pretty major events. I'm not gonna go through all of the dates because that would be too much. But we get, because of the retrograde, we get 3 Saturn trines. And so on top of this, we have the support of Saturn in Aries. So I'm actually kind of excited, even though it's in my 12th house, because there is an element here of being able to really build and really solidify a sense of power, really solidify a sense of security, to really get confident in the things that you want and the things that you were dreaming of and the things that your heart craves, and having some actual traction and some actual information and knowledge about how to build things and to move things forward. Also, this transit is going to bring in risky behavior. I was talking about Saturn and Aries the other day, and it's about, to me, it is about being reckless, but it's about learning how reckless you should be and how far you can push that envelope. Sometimes Saturn is too slow. Sometimes Saturn does cause regression. But in Aries, it's the other direction where, like, maybe you're going too fast, maybe you're moving it too speedy. And so it's, the lesson is about finding a middle ground. And with Jupiter involved, I do think some of us are going to overplay our hand, but that is going to teach us some really important and valuable lessons about our capacity, about what we really want. If you have like a desire or a dream that is beyond your capacity, not necessarily like, oh, you're not capable of it, but like, if you got said desire or dream, you probably would be like, this is way more than I wanted. This is not more as in like my lobster's too buttery, my steak is too juicy, but more as in like, I think a good example of something from my past is I used to be an opera singer, and once I hit a certain stage, I was looking at like what that life was going to look like for me, and it was like, oh, I don't want to travel all the time. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to live in hotels. And I think this transit is going to bring that up. Where like, oh, if I got that thing, I would have to give up that thing and give up that thing, and I wouldn't be able to do this thing. And so it's really about rearranging our desires and really locking in on what the core of those desires are rather than the outcome. The outcome is going to be great and fine, whatever. But like, what do you actually want? So we can use me again. With opera singing, I think I just wanted to be heard and I wanted to just be able to sing. Unfortunately, that's not, if you know anything about opera, that's not always how that works. Um, and the reality is that I can be heard. I'm right here being heard, and I can sing in my own home, and I can sing for my pets, and I can do a community theater thing or something like that if I so desire, and still be heard and seen. I don't necessarily have to make it my entire life. And I think that's something that is going to come up in this thing. And here's the deal: if you truly want something and you do want to do it, this is about problem solving that and finding the best way forward that works for you, and also looking at it and being like, you don't have to necessarily do things traditionally. And with the current astrological configuration, doing things traditionally is just not going to work. What someone was able to do 10, 20 years ago, 30, 40, whatever, doesn't work for the way the sky is right now. Doing things in a unique way, creating your own opportunities, going for what you want in spite of blocks. This is this Jupiter in Leo transit. Another important point is right around the beginning of it, we have Jupiter opposed Pluto. At the same time, we're going to have it trine Neptune and sextile Uranus, because they're all kind of around the same degree. So end of July, right about before eclipse season, we are going to hit some pretty intense Jupiter astrology. So I want to be clear, this isn't sunshine all the time. This is a very complicated transit, and I think it's going to be both deeply rewarding, and you're going to get to the other side and be like, oh, small child, little did you know when you started this Jupiter transit what the universe had in store for you, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I just do think it's going to age us a little bit. We also are going to get the fire trines with Neptune, like I said, and Saturn. The Saturn trines, we get the first one in August, the next one in April 2027, the last one in July 2027, right before it goes. It'll be at 27 degrees, I think, right before it goes into Virgo. And so there is that supportive journey and supportive energy of Saturn coming in and uplifting and moving us along. Will it make this season a little more complex? Yes, because we will have to check in with Saturn each one of those times to make sure that what we are building is actually functional and that we are also taking enough risk in order to get to the reward that we are looking for, while also not taking too much of a risk so that we don't blow ourselves up. Kind of in the same vein, when thinking about people in power and stuff, I think there's a good chance that a lot of people in power are going to overplay their hands, are going to, those who are overconfident, the 1% billionaires, blah, 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 that whole crew, there's a good chance that they are going to be real out of pocket and they might start some fires because they're out of pocket. This is good energy for rising up against your evil overlords, FYI. I can't remember his name. Barbalt? I think Barbalt. There's also a thing called Barbalt's Basket, which is going to be a configuration. I want to say this July. Yeah, it'll be this July when the moon goes into Libra, which he was an astrologer, I think in the early 19th century. No, 1900s, 20th century, who predicted that this time frame would be a huge turning point in the pattern of mankind, and specifically this July is that turning point. Now, I don't disagree with him at all, but I do think when we say turning point, it's not like, oh, and now we're turning around and walking the other direction and walking back all these horrible things. No, it's like, oh, we have gone, this summer is the summer where finally a large portion of the collective, even those who generally disagree with everyone, go, oh, we have gone a step too far. And now we got to walk it back. And now that walk back is going to take several years to be sure. But this is a huge transformational moment. And I think it's important to really sit with that. I did mention the South Node. So we have the South Node. There will be two passes with Jupiter in the South Node because we'll have the first pass, um, and then we will then have the second pass, and which will be great. So just a heads up that we have that. We're going to have, why didn't I write that? Oh, there's the date. There's going to be the first pass, which is going to be 11/11. And this first pass will also be the Jupiter Mars conjunction. So I will say this is probably going to be one of the harder portions of this moment. The South Node is a place of past lives, is a place of accumulated energy. It also can be a place where we're really good at something, but it's something that we've mastered and we shouldn't be relying on necessarily in this lifetime as like the main thing that we do or like the only thing that keeps us going. But this is going to be happening in November, and I think on the world stage, violence of some kind now. Jupiter has rulership of a lot of really cool stuff like higher knowledge and, like I said, legality and immigrants and things like that. So I honestly think there could be a powerful win there, but it isn't going to be without loss because the South Node is where we lose things or we have to leave things behind to move forward. Also, whenever you have a South Node conjunction, you have a North Node opposition. And so this is also Jupiter coming up against that kind of vortex that is the North Node, that forward moving point in the sky where we are headed toward what we'll never reach. And so just know that that 11/11 date is spicy to be sure and is going to require us to really be honest with what we want. If you are holding on to anything, if the eclipses haven't taken it, this will be a point where you will lose that thing that you're holding on to, and not lose something that is essential to you and not lose something that you desperately need, but something that is past its prime that your little fingies are still holding on to. This is a moment where the universe might do a little cutting, trimming, pruning. So just be prepared for that. And like I say, for all transits, let go of what you can before it happens. The second one will be on 420, interestingly enough, that final pass with Jupiter in the South Node, because Jupiter will have a retrograde between November and April. And I think that will be a nice little kind of sewing up and a moment of like recognizing why things happened the way they happened, of getting through the winter and being like, oh yes, spring has come, and also the South Node and Jupiter are together again, and this makes so much more sense now. And I think so. I think there'll be a massive jump in progress between those times, and then specifically on that date, like a reckoning in a good way, an understanding of what you've learned, what your heart has wanted, and how you're now more aligned with your actions to that thing. Because a lot of times we have things that we want, and then we do things kind of counterintuitively and go about it the wrong way, and then are wondering why it's not working. And this whole cycle is like, well, it's not working because you've been going about it the wrong way, and you've been thinking you want one thing but you actually want something else, which is why you're kind of acting in like a counter sense to what your desires are. Also important to note that this whole time we have eclipses on this axis. Now, we're never going to have a during this whole thing, we're never going to have a single moment where we fully get Aquarius and Leo by themselves. They will always be sharing an eclipse season with other signs, but they will still be happening. And so we'll get the first one, I want to say August, second week of August is the first one, and that will be the Leo new moon. So nearby. It'll be in the later degrees. So not directly on Jupiter, but still in the same sign. And then we'll have it in the spring as well. And then with July 26th, I think we'll have like a final little like farewell eclipse there, which important to note during that kind of final moment, we will also have triple eclipses. So Jupiter is going to be heading out with a bang in that triple eclipse, which does not happen often. It's going to be a long period of time. Instead of 6 weeks of eclipse chaos, we're going to get 8 weeks. Yay. And I'm including the post and pre shadows of those eclipses because I always find the 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after are still very, very eclipsy. So, this whole energy, this whole transit is about stepping into your power. It is about, I personally don't know that these things are necessarily risks. They're kind of just like what goes along with it, but they are going to feel risky because in society, we're not necessarily encouraged to kind of step outside of the norm. Yeah. And so this is going to be us stepping outside of convention and stepping outside of what's been expected of us to stay true to what exists in our heart space, to what exists when it comes to desires, to what we believe that we deserve and we genuinely do deserve. And so just know that this is very heart led. If you already have desires that you know and want, use this Mercury retrograde starts right around this time. Like literally, it's a few hours after this Mercury station's retrograde to really get clear with what you want. The fact that it's in Cancer is allowing us to process the Jupiter Cancer cycle to a certain extent. And so use this time if you see this while this is still happening. If it's past July 23rd is when the Mercury retrograde's over of 2026. And then 3 weeks after would be when the post shadow is over. So if you see this in between now and sometime in August of 2026, then use this time wisely to really let things go so that you can step into this really powerful forward moving energy. Yeah, there's the downside of the South Node stuff where we're going to be losing things and going to have to be recognizing things about ourselves that maybe we don't like and maybe we don't want and having to re-embrace them and reintegrate them. This is also very shadow worky. We're having to reintegrate parts of self that we've abandoned in order to be a whole self so that we can have our whole desires and our whole dreams. And so I encourage you to really be thoughtful when we move through this energy. And when you feel panicky about something or when you feel that something's not working, go and ask yourself what your motivations are. Go and ask yourself what your heart wants and what your heart desires and how you can get closer to that thing. And also ask yourself if the way that you're going at something actually aligns with the thing that you want at all, right? Like if you want to meet someone but you like never leave your home and you're not actively doing things to pursue meeting someone, probably not the best way to do it. um if you want a job or a certain career but you haven't really put any effort into applying, or you haven't like educated yourself on the field that you want to work in or getting a certification, then like not the best way to go about it. And now can the universe come in and like give you something in a unique way? Absolutely, but you need to be doing the things that can like bring that in to usher that energy in. Yeah, you could absolutely meet someone barely leaving your home, but not if your energy isn't already kind of in line. You don't get stuff just because you exist, right? Yeah, like the universe could bring someone to your door, but it's not going to happen if you're not actively bringing that energy in by doing stuff that would bring them in. Like I tell people all the time, you may not meet the love of your life in a bookshop or a coffee shop or at a show or whatever thing is your thing, but like if you're not going to those places that have that energy, how are you bringing that energy into your life? And this Jupiter Leo is like, yeah, you have to do the things that your heart desires in order to get the things your heart desires. Even if it's just something of like, when I have, which I would also suggest using I have, not when. I always suggest using like I have in present tense for your manifestations. Like, I am wealthy. I am cared for. I am fed. I am loved. I am well spicy timed. Whatever the things are that you want. I would do that, but also like going and putting yourself in places that you would like to be when you get those things. Like maybe you can't afford to do it all the time, but do it when you can. Do it after you've just manifested as a way to affirm that manifestation, things like that. This whole cycle and transit is about going out and doing what you want before it happens. Even if it's in a small way, even if it's kind of in a little like way that's not quite as big or quite as bold, but like if you want to be on stage, then find a way to be on stage, even if it's not as big of a stage as you would want. We've got to do things by baby steps. Very few of us are going to get skyrocketed into something. Although I will say with this transit, I do think some of us are going to be skyrocketed into visibility for sure, but it's not going to happen, if this makes sense, by pursuing being skyrocketed into visibility. It's going to happen by doing the little things in between until the universe does the thing that you need. Like signing up for an open mic at a small dive bar. Great. Signing up to volunteer for something, like if you want to become a nurse or a tech or something, signing up to volunteer for a blood drive, signing up to just be around those things, become an EMT, just like doing things that are adjacent and accessible for you because you want something really big and probably seemingly impossible, which it's not. I don't believe in impossible. As someone whose life is very improbable and very impossible, I do not believe in impossible. So take this moment, this energy, this heart forward Jupiter that is still going to be a bit of a struggle, and really invest in what you want and in what you love. And also look at the world. Like, what are you doing playing half ass games with your dreams and desires? Go for it all the way because you deserve to have all the way. And if you play small, you'll never know how far you could go. And that's really the essence of Jupiter and Leo energy, is like you don't know until you believe, and you don't believe until you start to do the thing. I think another point before I kind of close this out that I think is important is we're going to see a lot of big fashion, big design. I think we are going to see a counterculture to the kind of stark energy that's crept into mainstream fashion. We're going to see a lot more color and play. This is a great time to support small businesses because A, the economy sucks, and B, like these folks deserve to be supported. And also, bringing color and joy and loudness into your life is going to be a way to honor this. Adding brooches to your fit, adding jewelry, adding gold, adding vibrant colors to your look, not caring about what people think about you. Very important to this thing. And yeah, you can feel a little self conscious, but attention is attention, right? Which is a very Jupiter Leo sentiment. Um, so yeah, there's going to be losses, there's going to be redirects, there's going to be us having to grapple with power and having to grapple with the desires that other people have as well. But I also think there's a beautiful reclaiming of who we are and what we want, and our own unique way of being visible and our own unique way of participating in the energy is going to be in high relief this season. I think that's all I have for you. I think it is going to be very beautiful, though, and I think it can be very empowering if you understand that it is not going to be simple or easy, but it is going to be good, especially when you look back on it in several years, as I always say. Anyways, my loves, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. You can always ask me any questions or pop any comments down below. If you have any videos that you would like me to make, you can also make those requests down in the comments. I love you all, and I wish you a blessed Jupiter and Leo transit, and I hope to see you in my other videos throughout the year.